morning. My name is William Michael Forbes, and you're watching a morning message. It's very fascinating, as a channeler, a medium. I actually prefer the term medium because every single human being on this planet has an ability to tap into non-physical dimensions of consciousness, beings, angels, archangels, guides, masters, and beings from other planets. That are available to all of us at all time. And when we understand that process, we can begin to access information and knowledge just beyond our own acquired personal reality about what we think life is. And from that perspective, I have learned and understood amazing things and experienced beings that I never imagined I would ever be able to actually have a communication with. And they all have something different to say, and they all have the same underlying message. And the underlying message seems to be that we are all one. We are all particles in a unified field of consciousness on this planet. And I had a being by the name of Stephen Hawkins just step in very briefly this morning, and he said to me, it's important you talk about the concept of the intimacy of energy and mathematics. And I asked him, I said, well, what should I say about that? And he said, understand that the intimacy between the two is lost because one is predominantly focused in the head and the other is predominantly focused in the heart. And the two are often not married in the scientific community. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And he says, well, we have created massive ideas and information from the concept of mathematics, the theories of it, the applications of it, that we've been able to solve many of the problems that face us in theory. But mathematics did not give us the experience of the theorems on which the mathematics was supporting. And this is where I started to get lost, because when he starts getting into the distinctions of mathematics, the information is pretty profound, and I'm not a mathematician. I don't have that in my mental makeup, but I can feel the complexity, the depth, the limitless potential of the language of mathematics. And what he said, that what humanity had is a difficulty of reconciling and integrating the theoretical with the knowing, with the heart. He said, when humanity comes to the place where the head and the heart meet, then the necessity for theories, the necessity to try and solve problems will not be so much of an action that we have to engage in, for we will operate from a place of knowing. And this is what he said happens when we get to that place where we can integrate the head and the heart. We move from questioning into knowing and being. You do not know, he says, you do not know how to breathe. You just breathe. You can deliberately control this process through an act of will, in which case you are interacting with a process differently than you would naturally. One of the challenges that he faced is in trying to reconcile that his understanding of energy and from the realm of quantum physics could not be reconciled because of his physical conditions. He could not reconcile why his knowledge could not correct the conditions of his form. It was only from the perspective of moving from that very diametrically opposite condition of physical immobility to the liberation that occurred when I left my body, that I began to recognize that it's the experience of a certain state of consciousness that enables transformation and change to occur in time, space, and matter. But what he's saying is that the big message for humanity is to recognize that it is the experience of being what you are that allows you to articulate what it is you are here to do. You don't need a body to articulate greatness, although it's far more preferable to have one that functions and far less cumbersome if that's the case. But it is the experience of what happens when we bring our knowledge and our experience of being into that knowledge, that which you are, which is far greater than the finite perceptions of reality that you currently exist in. That level of awareness will transform the matter in which you currently exist. What do you mean by that? I mean that when you truly know that which you are will translate into that which you are knowing. In other words, the quality of your attention and awareness will affect the very matter in which you find yourself existing at this time. One of the challenges of the realm of energies in which I worked while in matter dealt with conceptions that from an intellectual perspective were extremely intriguing and exciting, but did not have the necessary heart that would have enabled the value of the ideations that are generated from theoretical sciences to take the proper meaning, shape, and form in the human condition that they would when imbued with the spirit of knowing, of love, of joy, of contribution, of not secularizing information and knowledge, but using information and knowledge to unite and unify humanity in a condition where each and every part of the human organism operates in harmony with other parts. Theory does not resolve that unified state of being. He wants to repeat that. Theory does not resolve that unified state of being. Only the unified state of being can resolve the questions of theory. But one must first bring into the scientific arenas of exploration a sense of wonder, a sense of knowing, a sense of being that will then add to the intellectual components of individual expressions in that particular field that you call science, that will enable science to be a much more effective vehicle in resolving many of the human questions with regard to how there are differences in belief, differences in understanding, differences in reality that from the simplest point have kept many of you separate from each other. Without the heart of knowing the truth of what you are, you cannot resolve with the head alone the social conditions in which much of humanity struggles with today. We sought as a scientific community to find this unified field of energy in such a way that we could explain it to everyone and that everyone could know it. But the methodology that we used had an exclusivity to it that ended up negating the very efforts so many of us put towards unifying a field that is already unified. And there's a much simpler and elegant way that we can go about doing this. You cannot theoretically understand experience. You cannot theoretically understand the truth of events in time, space, or matter, but you can experience the effects of time, space, and matter in such a way that you can enable yourself to know what are the unifying principles of energy from an experiential perspective before the theoretical. It is the experiential that will give the solutions to the theoretical. The theoretical can be used to create conceptions that can enable some to move in the direction of experiencing that which is not experienced by the theory. In other words, a theory can draw one's attention to an energy, a quality of being. And if one's attention is on that quality of being, then the conditions will begin to change and adjust themselves according to the quality of the being that is so engaged by one's intentions and attentions. Science must go more into the experiential, while always being mindful of the practical. But the practical in and of itself, the very nature of what you call practical and applied sciences, requires that certain evidentiary conditions exist in order for a truth to be established. Whereas in the condition of experience, to say you're putting your hand under cold water and describing the feeling of that cold water to another is different than the one that is experiencing the cold water. And the one who is observing that experience cannot say of a truth what cold water is unless they too put their hand under it. So without the experiential reality of being, you cannot understand nor reconcile the separation that occurs from theoretical conceptions of what you think, feel, and believe reality is. I want to boil this down to a very simple point that we must all learn to engage. That this unified field of energy is always unified, but we are understanding that it is responsive to what it is we choose to think, to what it is we choose to believe, and to what this physical world appears to be doing. We seem to separate cause and effect. And in that separation, we separate ourselves from what is needed to be knowing, what we need to know at that point. The short way to get to truth is through experience, not through theory. The short way is through experience and not through theory. Up and down are relative terms in certain conditions. For you can move into a place like space and the conditions of up and down no longer exist. The information and ideas that we garner from science are contextually limited by the conditions in which these ideas are understood. If you change the context, you change the conditions and the knowledge of certain conditions of experience. I'm just telling you, it's getting a bit out of my league and trying to understand this. When he first came to me today, the statement he made was to understand mathematics and the intimacy of energy. And I got really excited about it because the feeling I got from the idea of mathematics and the intimacy of energy was that there's a place, a meeting place for all matter, in that we see it all as an extension of ourselves, that it is really the whole system of life as we understand it is working together, whether we're conscious of it or not. And what comes to my mind is, like in your body right now, in my body right now, we got thousands of cells dying, thousands of cells being reborn. And none of us are aware of that process. None of us are aware of that process, but it's going on. But we can become aware of the process. I don't know about you, when I meditate, I can sit, and when I'm taking my breath in, I can actually feel the oxygen moving into my lungs and into my bloodstream. And I can feel the way my blood changes when fresh oxygen hits it. And I can feel how that sensation goes through the body. Well, before I understood meditation, before I experienced it, I never had that awareness before. So we can change our awareness of what we are experiencing. And in meditation, I've learned to do that. But we can also alter our experience of our relationship to each other in this world. So when he said mathematics and the intimacy of energy, I really got the flavor that every single human being on this planet is like the cells in our body. We operate independently of each other. I mean, those cells are individual, and they're moving through my bloodstream, and they're moving in the muscles and the tissues. But they're all also working together, each doing their own part. And when we are unaware of certain things, it doesn't mean they're happening. And I'm trying to put into words the feeling I got of the concept when he first brought it to me, that there are things going on in the Middle East. There are things going on in the United States. There's things going on in the Philippines and in the South Pole, and all these processes are going on in the human condition, on the planet, in the solar system, in the cosmos, that we can become aware of or not be aware of. But our awareness, I know that my awareness of feeling oxygen going into my bloodstream when I take a breath in, the experience of feeling that vitality that happens when the cells are suddenly getting that hit of O2. I think the same thing happens for humanity, that when we become conscious and aware of our interconnectivity to each other, that we move into an experience of being that's different, that we work into a role like this. My hands all work together with me when I tell them to open and close. All the millions and millions of cells that are here are working together as I tell them to open and close, right? They're doing it, they're executing it for me. And I think humanity is like this. We've forgotten this. We've forgotten this integrated relationship that we have with each other. And that's from a perspective of experience, what I call energy, to become aware that we are completely interconnected, but still functioning as independent individuals on this planet. But that there's a place where we are all capable and able to work together as a unified whole without surrendering or sacrificing our individuality or our different changes, our different values and different beliefs. I think that's the flavor I got. There's a place that Stephen recognizes that reality exists, where we do not have conflict, but we have individuality. We have unique functionality, but we also have an awareness that our part affects the whole, and we can alter that by the nature of our being. Again, I don't know if any of this makes sense to anybody. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around the flavor and articulate a feeling that happened when he first came in and made that statement about mathematics and the intimacy of energy. That mathematics tries to resolve what the head needs to understand about being. And I think that we struggle with that as a species. I mean, religion, politics, social orders, they operate mostly from the head. They operate from conceptions of right and wrong. They operate from conceptions of good and evil. But to truly operate from a state of being that recognizes that we are one in essence, in nature and being, I think we will see a very different social order begin to emerge than anything we've ever experienced in this paradigm of humanity that has been around for only the last 70,000 years. That recognizing that what you think now, what you feel now, is affecting, like what I think and feel about my hand opening and closing affects that change. Well, is it not possible then that what I'm thinking and feeling about what's going on in Iraq or in the United States or in Canada or in Germany, what I'm thinking about the planetary conditions as a whole, am I not affecting that? Do we not have that ability too that when we think of that child that's being born in that hospital in Dusseldorf, to John and Johann, uh, what happens there? What am I affecting then? How did I become aware of that? Is that a real event? The qualities in which we think of things alters the way things are in our bodies and in the world around us. And that was the flavor I got, that this intimacy of energy that we all live in, that we are living in this sea of unbroken energy, and each and every one of us has this ability to affect it. And again, I don't want to get into too much more because I feel like I'm just rambling now, but there is this place that I'm trying to articulate from the information these guys have been giving me over the last couple of years, that each and every one of us, no matter what your position is in life, you are influencing and affecting this world. You are influencing and affecting the people around you as they are influencing and affecting you. And that our knowledge and understanding of that process enable us to take responsibility for how do I want to live in joy? Do I want to live in suffering? And really coming to that place where we deliberately and intentionally articulate effects in time, space, and matter that represent what we really want to experience. Do I have a right to say somebody shouldn't experience going out and jumping out of an airplane? Do I have a right to say that somebody else shouldn't have the right to do what they're doing? It's there is a right and there is a wrong. Wow. He's saying the only way to resolve it is to be it, to experience your being as something that is not separate from everything else. When you can experience your consciousness in this fashion, you will begin to understand the infinite and the unified nature of being. I hope this helps somebody out there, makes sense to somebody, gives them some inspiration. Yeah. Thank you for your time today. Much love, and we'll see you another day.